everyone. Welcome back to Goffstown Today, the local public affairs program that's being brought to you by the Goffstown Democratic Committee. Our goal is to provide meaningful discussions of local and state issues that are important to the greater Goffstown community. Over the coming weeks, we're going to continue to spotlight the many issues of importance to the town and to New Hampshire voters in this fall's election. Our guest today is Catherine Rogers, who represents Merrimack County District 28, which includes wards 8, 9, and 10 of the city of Concord. Ms. Rogers is a retired attorney and a former prosecutor. She's a veteran lawmaker who's seeking her 8th term in the New Hampshire House this year. And she's also served multiple terms as a member of the Merrimack County Commission and the Concord City Council. As a member of the House's Anti-Gun Violence Caucus, she's sponsored a number of gun violence prevention bills, including imposing a waiting period on firearms sales and closing the gun show private sales loophole on background checks. She's also worked on related issues, including gun-free school zones and the passage of red flag bills. In August, however, Governor Chris Sununu vetoed all of the anti-gun violence measures that were passed during the 2020 session. He did the same for identical measures that were passed in 2019. With that, I'd like to welcome Ms. Rogers to Goffstown Today. Thank you very much for speaking with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I always like to have a chance to talk about our gun violence prevention bills. Many people like to think or like to say that we in fact want to take all people's guns away and infringe on their Second Amendment rights, which is very distant from the truth. In fact, I grew up in a family of hunters. I grew up in a family that had guns in the household. And I'd like to point out that my grandmother was actually a very good shot, much better shot than many of the men in my family, in fact. And I can remember many a time when she would go out and do partridge shooting, pheasant shooting, and so forth, bring it back and dress it for dinner. So I'm used to being around hunters. I'm used to being around guns. So I in no means want to take people's guns away from them. I simply would like to advocate responsible, common sense gun laws in the state. And unfortunately, what was common sense and what was responsible in 1910 or in 1930 is not so today. The weapons that we have now are far different. And the weapons we have now are far different than the muskets that we had in Revolutionary time when our forefathers wrote the Constitution. There are 4 bills that we in the House have worked on substantially over the last number of years. The first one is the one you spoke about, which is the background check or the universal background check. And there is a federal bill that's that's not actually a universal background check, but it's a beginning background check. And in New Hampshire, we've had over 120,000 background checks that were done, but they winnowed out a great deal of people that were not able to purchase those weapons because of the background check. What the background check bill that we've introduced in New Hampshire would do would deal with not only the private sales at gun shows, but online and through the classifieds. And many guns are sold through the classifieds. People have heard of Craigslist, but they're also, in newspapers and various magazines and so forth and online. And if you don't go through a federal licensed dealer, then they're not often done. So a private sale can occur. And the bill that we have has an exemption for family members, neighbors. So basically, if you know the person you're selling the weapon to, and it's not what you call a, quote, prohibited person. And a prohibited person would be somebody that is a convicted felon with gun violence, somebody that's a gun trafficker, somebody that is under a domestic stalking or restraining order for domestic violence, various prohibited classes. If you know the person isn't that, if you know the person is a fine upstanding citizen that doesn't have a criminal record, then you can sell them the gun. But if you have a question, if you don't know that person's background, you'll need to go to a federal licensed firearms dealer and do a background check. That would be required by the bill. So we're not saying that you can't have the gun. We're not taking the gun away from you. We're simply saying that just as if you bought the gun in a store, in a gun shop, that you would have to do the background check. So we're just making it universal background check, not just the people that buy the guns in a store. That bill actually passed twice during the last session, once in 2019 and once in 2020. Passed both the House and the Senate, went to the governor's office, and the governor, even though he said when he campaigned, he said he would support that bill. And in conversations, he said to me and that he wanted to keep the conversation going. Excuse me, when it came time to sign or veto the bill, he vetoed the bill. So I'm not quite sure why he would say one thing and do the other, but that's what happened. We found that bill is supported by up to 90% of the population in New Hampshire. And it's not just the population in the southern part of the state, it's population in Coos County, it's population in Cheshire County, in Rockingham County, throughout the state. And it's not just Democrats, it's Republicans, it's across borders, even NRA members. The majority of NRA members, when polled, support that thing. And actually, the NRA used to be in favor of it until their current leadership took over. So it's a bill that's universally supported by the majority of people. And we'll come back with it and try again. The second bill that we've worked on is the wait period. And you talked about that again in your introduction. Wait period bill, the bill that passed the House and the Senate this year, again, 2 times, was for a 3-day waiting period. And that allows for a cooling off time so that when you go and purchase the weapon, you would simply wait for 3 days. And that would deal with what's called the Charleston loophole. I'm sure you've read about or remember the deal in Charleston where the young man went into the church and was in a prayer circle and murdered the number of people there. He bought the gun immediately. If he had had the 3-day wait period, he would not have been able to go in and do that. He would have been found the information about him, his problems within that time period. He wouldn't have gotten the gun. So it would close that Charleston loophole. Also, we find that suicides, most people when they are thinking about suicide, do so quickly. It's a impulsive thing. And when someone commits suicide or tries to commit suicide, the most effective way to do it is with a gun. It's not saying that if you try to hang yourself or you try to kill yourself with a knife or with drugs that you won't be successful, but all the statistics show the most successful way to commit suicide is with a gun. If you take a gun, put it in your mouth, put it to your brain, the odds that you're going to be successful are much higher than any other way. And when people, the other numbers are found that when people attempt suicide and fail, that generally speaking, the odds of them trying again are very small. So if we can catch them the first time, chances are they won't do it again, they'll live longer. So the wait period, if you're thinking of committing suicide and you go in and you have to wait before you can actually bring that gun home, then it's going to slow you down. People that disagree with this bill, people that don't want any kind of regulation, have argued that, well, this is a disadvantage to the poor woman that's in a domestic violent relationship. She needs to go purchase a gun to be able to protect herself if she's being abused. Everything in the statistics have also shown that the worst thing you can do in a domestic violence effect is to introduce a weapon into it. And then, in fact, that increases the lethality of the whole thing. That if you bring a gun in, chances are someone is going to get killed or severely wounded. And most times it won't be the victim that purchased the gun for protection. Most times it's going to be the person that's been doing the abusing. That's not always the case. And you can always find the example where, in fact, the victim does save themselves. But that's a very small percentage of when it happens. The other bill that's been spoken of a lot is what's called gun-free schools. And in New Hampshire, we have a bill that prohibits guns within 1,000 feet of the school unless the person is licensed to carry by the state and they can bring it in. But there's a gap in the law that leaves local school districts and police without the ability to enforce someone bringing the gun into the school unless there's a threat. So if they have a threat by a student or someone that they're going to do harm, yes, they can stop them then, but not until they get that threat. So if the threat's not made and someone just brings the gun into the school without pre-threatening something, someone can do anything. And a lot of the school districts came to us and the police and said, we need something that's going to help us. And this is in light of more and more school shootings that have happened. This was a bill that rose up from the grassroots, from the school districts, from teachers, school personnel, from students, and from police officers, and have come to us and talked about it. This too is a bill that was vetoed twice by the governor, was passed by both the House and the Senate, 2 different terms. The last of the 4 bills that has been talked about a lot and has been worked on, and you refer to it as the Red Flags Bill. That was a bill that is now more commonly known as ERPO, for a short thing. What it stands for is Extreme Risk Protection Orders. And what this is it's a basically a gun violence restraining order. And I think most of your listeners would have heard of restraining orders when someone has somebody that's been hurting them or is violent. In a domestic violence situation, for instance, someone will get a restraining order to keep that violent person away from them. Well, this is a gun violence restraining order. It's a temporary prohibition from having a gun. If a family member or police officers find that someone has, and it's most commonly used on someone that has some mental health issues, they find that somebody in their family is suffering from some mental health things and they need to get help. And they have guns in the house and they're worried about what that person's going to do with those guns while they're suffering from this. They can go to court, and after consultation with a judge and after a hearing with a judge where they put forth evidence, can get a restraining order where the judge orders those guns taken out of the home temporarily while the person is getting assistance with their mental health situation. And once that situation is resolved and they're brought back to more competency, they can have the guns back. It doesn't permanently take the guns out of the home. It's a temporary situation. And this is something that we've heard a number of times around the country when there's been some of the mass shootings, when there's been even smaller shootings. That the person has been mentally ill, and everybody asks, why does that person have a gun? And they say something needs to be done. This is one of those bills that does what needs to be done. Many states, such as Florida and so forth, I'm not sure which other states, I'm off the top of my head, I'm not thinking right now, but after some of these tragedies that we've all heard about and read about, where somebody with severe mental illness has gone in and shot a number of people, these are the types of bills that have been passed, this emergency risk protection order. And it's been found to be effective to try to help people that just temporarily need to have some adjustments made with what's going on in their life. And having the guns taken away from them so they're not put in the position of when they have a failure in how they're dealing with life. They don't have the gun there to be able to use it and do something with. So those are the 4 bills that have been most worked on over the last, I would say, 2 to 4 years. And what we've tried to do is deal with various members of the community. The mental health community has been involved. The domestic violence community that's worked with the prevention of that has worked with us. And we've tried very hard to deal with various law enforcement, hunters, everybody, so that we protect all people's rights. It's in no way a means to take away people's guns. It's the last thing we want to do. New Hampshire is a state where hunting is a big industry. The outdoorsmen or the hunters are some of the best conservationists we have. So we don't want to take anything away from them. And in fact, a number of hunters support this legislation. So the people that are terrified of these bills don't understand them clearly or are just trying to terrify others for political reasons.
All these bills have drawn some level of bipartisan support in their passage in the legislature. They've not been strictly party line bills, as I recall.
They've become increasingly more party line in that the Republican Party has decided to make them party line. They started out that we did have Republican support, but then it was kind of a line drawn in the sand by party leadership of the Republican Party that they would not support any bill that had the word gun or weapon in it, unfortunately. In other states, many of these bills are supported bipartisanly, but in New Hampshire, it's become something that anybody that supports these on the Republican Party has been issued a primary in the next election and thrown out, unfortunately. So it's unfortunate because, as I said, in the general public, we have a number of people from all parties and independent backing that supports this legislation. But as far as elected members, um, people that support it from other parties are punished when it comes to time for election. They're not given the support of their party apparatus.
I'm presuming that there are plans to reintroduce these measures in 2021 if we succeed in holding the majority in the House.
Even if we don't succeed, the bills will always be introduced for a number of reasons. One, it's the correct legislation, it's needed out there. Two, the public demands it. It's not just that I'm crazy or the other people that sponsor this are crazy and want to keep doing it. But as I said, a number of these pieces come from the grassroots up. The school one, for instance, as I said, it's not only school people and police officers, it's students, it's parents, um, and the background checks we have. I'm sure many of your watchers have seen the student movement that came up after the shootings that occurred in many of the schools around the country. We have a very active school student group in New Hampshire that have come to the State House and met with state senators, have asked to meet with the governor, um, and have asked to meet with a number of legislators. And it's a large group of students that are very much concerned. They're afraid that they've been in there and they have to learn about drills about what to do with active shooters, and they don't like that. They're scared. So as long as the students are demanding that these bills be brought forward, then the legislators will bring them forward. So yeah, they'll be brought forward no matter what, if the Democrats are in the majority or the minority. And we hope that we will be able to find Republicans that will work with us this time. As I said, when I first started, I think it's been 10 years now since we started working on the background check bill. When it was first introduced, there were Republican co-sponsors. And we're hoping that that will come true again. We're hoping it won't be a partisan issue.
You mentioned, I believe, that because of some loophole or quirk in the law right now, that police departments are unable to enforce the no carrying in a school zone reason. This presumably means that anyone, because New Hampshire has no license for concealed carry, that anyone can walk into a school carrying.
I don't know. I'm not the expert of this. Representative Mary Heath from Manchester is the expert on the school zone one. She has done that bill forever. Mary Heath is a wonderful legislator, your neighbor, as I said, from Manchester, and she knows all of the details about this. But there is a loophole that allows people to go in to the schools with the weapon that I wish I knew more about, but I have to admit that's the one that probably know least about of any of the bills. But there is a loophole that allows, makes it difficult for the police to enforce. That in combination with the fact that the ruling from the AG's office has been that they can't enforce it. So it's been a combination of the way the law is written and the ruling from the Attorney General's office has been that they can't enforce no guns in the schools. So it's a combination of things. You know, you need not only need the law, but you need to have the Attorney General's office working with you. And so far they've been unwilling to do so.
And on the red flag bills, they seem to be something that's gotten more attention in the last couple of years. Do you feel there's any hope for them going forward?
I think there's hope for it. The concern with the red flags bill or the ERPO bill has been a little bit of people have been a little concerned about the constitutionality, that people are kind of declared guilty before there's a trial because the guns are taken away on a court order, but the bill has been written so that there has to be a judge present. There has to be evidence brought forward. So we think we've answered those problems. So that should have a little better effect. That one took a little more work to get passed this time around, but we're hoping that it did pass and it did get vetoed by the governor. And actually, Wednesday of this week, we're going to try to override the veto on this. Probably not successfully, but there'll be a try on it. But that one will be brought back, and we're hoping for a little better success, a little stronger vote on it. As I said, around the country, that has been being passed in states because everybody's looking for a way to deal with people that have mental health issues on a temporary basis, not to punish them for having mental illness, but to deal with it on a temporary basis, to take the guns away in the short term. And not, we don't want to hold anything against them for being sick, but we do want to temporarily deal with it. And it seems to have been successful in other states, and that has been very much a bipartisan effort in the other states. So we're hoping we can get that here, where more Republicans will maybe look at it and say, yeah, gee, we do want to help with mental health conditions, and maybe that'll work. So we're hoping it'll get better.
Well, let's hope for good luck in the veto session this week. I'd like to thank you very much for talking to us. It's going to be a very, very interesting campaign this fall, I think, on all levels. So once again, we appreciate very much your participation.
I would suggest your voters ask all of the representatives to vote for these bills before they vote for them too.
We can only hope. Thank you very much, Ms. Rogers.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching today. Going forward, you can watch these programs which are aired here on Goffstown TV. You can also find them on the video page on our website, which is goffstowndems.com. You can find them on YouTube by searching for Goffstown Democrats and get on our YouTube channel, or they will also be posted on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Goffstown Dems. Please like them, please share them widely. Thank you for watching, and remember, go out and vote. Thank you, and goodbye.